On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, we're joined by Clemente Almanza of the Norman Transcript and ThunderWire.com to discuss the Oklahoma City Thunder season to this point and the expectation level for them moving forward. Plus, is SGA the number one option? Is Josh Giddey's hot streak for real? And what's the ceiling on Jalen Williams? And how does Chet Holmgren fit into all of this? All that and more coming up on today's Locked On Thunder podcast.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. On today's show, brought to you by our good friends over at LinkedIn. We're going to dive into the Oklahoma City Thunder season to this point. Jalen Williams' ceiling, Josh Giddey's nice stretch, and will the Thunder make the
playoffs
this season? Find out on today's show, which is brought to you by our good friends over at LinkedIn. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. Clemente, thank you for joining us. How are you doing today?
Appreciate it, Rylan. Really excited to be on for sure to talk some Thunder hoops.
So, Clemente, I want to ask you to describe this Thunder season. Let's say that there's an NBA fan out there that has not turned on to an NBA game or NBA content since the draft. How would you describe this season to them?
Oh man, I feel like this word's been overused a lot, but I feel like the Thunder are like over exceeding their expectations. I think most betting sites heading into the season had the Thunder at 23 and a half wins, somewhere around that range. And like they're likely gonna eclipse that before the All-Star break. And like you can make a really good argument too that they've had some bad luck in some of these close games. I think they're 11-17 in clutch situations, which is like one of the worst records in the league right now. So if I had like a little bit more luck than that, then they could probably be fighting for a top 5 seed, considering just how packed the Western Conference is right now. And you know, if you open up the hood of the car, I think they're 12th in like adjusted net rating and like 12th in adjusted margin of victory. So like all of these, while the 23-25 record is nice, you can really make a strong argument that it could probably be better.
They are losing a lot of games late in just the nature of being a young team. And by losing a lot of games late, I just mean that they're really, really competitive. So like every single night can go either way. As Chet Holmgren said, you know, they're winning games by 4, losing games by 4. And he's just got to come in next year and make the team 5 points better. We'll have more on Holmgren later on. But coming into the year, the media nationally was down on the Thunder. I mean, John Hollinger predicted 20 wins. What was your expectations whenever this season started in Minnesota?
Oh man, I didn't have them winning 20 games, but honestly, I was kind of expecting something along the lines of the last couple of seasons where they're probably in the 20s in terms of wins. But yeah, I mean, I know like the Thunder fans like to give national media a lot of crap for like what their expectations were, but like even locally, even like a lot of like people we know also had the Thunder like in the 20s, and like I don't really think that many people had them competing for a playoff spot in January.
Yeah, I don't think anyone had them being this good. For me, it was more so this team is going to be better than last year's team. Like, so if you put yourself back into October mode, at that time, I thought this team's going to be better than last year. Like, they're going to play basketball a lot better. They're going to compete a lot harder. They're going to raise their level of production. But the Western Conference is an absolute bloodbath, and they're not going to get the reward for it. Like, they're going to be playing a lot better, but they might only win 26 games, which is still a 2-game improvement, but it's not this quantum leap in terms of win improvement that we're seeing right now, potentially, if they continue down this road. And they've shocked the world, obviously. They're 1 win away from matching their win total last year. And whenever this next win comes to make them at 24, they are playing really good basketball. I don't think anyone expected them to play this good, but I expected them to play a more complete game of basketball where you just lose games late because you're a young team and that's what young teams do. But the Thunder have avoided that despite being the youngest team in the NBA and the second youngest team of all time, only ahead of last year's squad. So a lot of the reason for this has been Shai and Shai's explosion into superstardom, into being a 30-point per game scorer. We saw this after the All-Star break last year. Now we've seen this for half a season this year. Is this just who Shai is at this point?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say because the way he's scoring 30 points is pretty efficient. I mean, he's doing a lot of it at getting to the line. He's finding ways to get to the basket with ease. The way he drives to the basket is like the complete polar opposite of the way Russell Westbrook did, where there's not as much athletic explosiveness. It's more like trying to finesse your way in. And like I think that play style is like a lot more sustainable for not just this season, but like for the rest of his career. I'm assuming he's not going to be like, I think shooting like 60% true shooting. I'm assuming that's going to eventually come down, but like just the way he's getting to the basket and the way he's drawing fouls and all of this stuff. I mean, that's definitely a sustainable skill. But like, it's just, I know most Thunder fans and like us in the media as well have become numb to it. But the fact that Shai's averaging like over 30 points and like such high efficiency as a guard it's wild.
Yeah, Shai has been awesome, and I think that this is just who he is because we have seen quite a large sample size of it. And as you mentioned, it's all sustainable, it's all repeatable. It's not as though he's shooting 45% from three, where we know that's just not going to sustain itself for Shai. He's hitting tough mid-range shots. He's getting to the rim and finishing through contact, finishing over defenders. He's able to, like you said, finesse his way to the rim and keep the defense guessing on okay, will this be the step back mid-range? Will this be the drive to the rack? Will this be something, stop on a dime at the nail and shoot it from the free throw line? Like, how is he going to attack us this time? He's also getting better as a playmaker, as a ball handler, as a passer, which then puts even more pressure on the defense. And as the roster around him gets better, it puts even more pressure on the defense. And I think that Shai will still get better. I think that Shai is not done growing himself. But even if you want to take a more cynical view and say he is done growing, then he still will see his production uptick just by putting more guys around him like Isaiah Joe who can shoot. Now you can't just go find Isaiah Joes out on the street, although you did find that's where you found Isaiah Joe, guys that shoot 45% from three and everything. But you're seeing in games like last night where Shai's driving and the defender is just caught in the middle. Do I go collapse and double team Shai, which we should do? That's kind of the only way to stop him or even attempt to contain him. But I then can't leave this three-point shooter because he'll kick it out to him for three, and then we're doomed either way. And so you got to pick your poison, and Shai will make you pay no matter what you pick. So I think that this is all very sustainable for Shai, and there's nothing that leaps out as, oh, that's going to come down. Maybe the efficiency comes down a tick, but even that, I mean, he's proven throughout his entire career he's a very efficient player. He's never been an inefficient player. And I think that he's really calculated in his movements and really calculated in his shot selection that help him get to that point. It's been awesome to watch him thrive. Coming up, let's talk about Jalen Williams out of Santa Clara. And let's talk about a similar hot streak, only on a smaller sample size, for Josh Giddey over these last 24 games dating back to December. We'll talk about all that coming up. But first, I want to tell you right now about our good friends over at LinkedIn. LinkedIn is incredible. You should go there right now and post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. They are there for you. As a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more effectively by matching your open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experience that you want to achieve your goals. LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your online jobs, but with targeting tools, you can go beyond resume data by using insights from your job post, from your company, and using over their 875 million profiles that they have on their website, and get your job posted front and center for the most qualified candidates. Identify the most qualified candidates at LinkedIn Jobs and connect with them fast and easy all in one place. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to screen and rate applicants based upon their job qualifications. It is why small businesses rank LinkedIn number one in delivering qualified candidates versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find qualified candidates to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedinjobs.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedinjobs.com/LockedOnNBA. Terms and conditions do apply to post your job for free at linkedinjobs.com/LockedOnNBA. Clemente, we're back talking Thunder basketball. Thanks for joining us again, Clemente, and let's talk J-Dub. Now, we've seen J-Dub have kind of a broad spectrum of games this year. 1-point games where he's not scoring. We've seen him go for 14 points in one half, then not go for any in the next half, or vice versa. And we've seen him play very complete games like he did against Atlanta. For you, what is the ceiling that you would say J-Dub can reach? Like, what do you think his potential is in the NBA?
I mean, I think his absolute ceiling is probably an all-star. And I know that might sound a little biased coming from me, but like even Kendrick Williams said so himself during training camp that he thinks J-Dub has all-star potential. In terms of like average outcome, I think it's safe to say that he's going to be probably a very high-end starter for the team. But, like you said, Jalen Williams has been great. He's been a really good finisher around the rim. I think he's like in the 91st percentile among wings and rim finishing, at least according to Cleaning the Glass. And, we saw a little bit of that last night where I think he had like 5 dunks and the loudest crowd reactions at the game were from J-Dub's dunks. And kind of like with Shai, I don't really see why none of these skills can sustain. And it feels like, eventually once his 3-point shot starts to come down, which I think most of us can agree is going to eventually start hitting, it's going to open like a whole new level to his scoring game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that Jalen Williams' 3-pointer will eventually fall because I feel the same way I did about Jeremiah Robinson-Earl last year. Like, Jerry's 3-point shot last year was not where you would have expected it to be, but it eventually started falling this year at a much higher clip in terms of in general, because this guy can shoot. Like Jalen Williams showed in college he can shoot. It's going to eventually fall down and especially get better than 32%, which is what he's at right now on Cleaning the Glass. It'll be better than that. And you mentioned it, 89 percentile at the rim, shooting 73% at the cup this season is very good for him. I think that J-Dub will be an all-star caliber player. I feel very confident in him being an all-star caliber player. And again, I stress, I just mean what level of production he's giving you. Not that he's ever even an all-star in OKC, because let's face it, it's a popularity contest at times. And if this team is as good as we think that they're going to be in the future, SGA is an all-star. Chet Holmgren has the edge in popularity and production, in terms of expectation level, to where he'll be voted into an all-star game. And you've got to be extraordinary to get 3 guys into the all-star game. So he might not ever make the all-star game, but he will be playing at that level. Similarly to what Shai did last year and the year before, where he was playing at an all-star level, he just couldn't get into the game. I think that it'll be that similar state for Jalen Williams out of Santa Clara. Now,
yeah,
go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, Mark Daigneault's talking about this a little bit, but he kind of wants J-Dub to be a little more aggressive with his shot, and I think we all kind of want to see that too. I feel like he plays with the flow of the offense, but if he was a little bit more selfish and a little bit more aggressive with his shot, then I feel like that should definitely increase his chances as a potential all-star. Maybe not this season, but maybe once it starts to develop more a little bit, and in the upcoming seasons, I could definitely see a case where J-Dubs has a strong all-star campaign. Let's
shift over to Josh Giddey. He's on an incredible hot streak since December 1st. He's only 20 years old, so this is, it's a small sample size in the grand scheme of the NBA. But when you talk about a 20-year-old, that's a pretty large sample size, especially a 20-year-old who didn't play that many games last year because of the hip injury, because of just injuries in general in his rookie year. What do you think of Josh Giddey over these last 20 games? I think it's up to 24 games now. He's played really well. What do you think about Josh Giddey in this stretch? Has there been anything in this stretch that is kind of eye-popping, like, wow, I didn't expect that? And what is your future outlook on Josh Giddey?
Well, I think, the easy things to go to with Josh Giddey over the last, 6 weeks is the fact that he's going to the cup a lot more often, and he's not really scared of contact as he was last season. I think he mentioned a couple of weeks ago that he's not settling for floaters or anything like that like he did last season, and he's more about, rooting his way to the basket. That's definitely sustainable, especially, once Josh starts to gain more muscles and he grows into his body. Like you said, he's only 20 years old. I think he gained like 10 pounds between last season to this season. So I definitely don't see why that shouldn't be sustainable. The outside shooting, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think he's been like one of the better 3-point shooters on the team, even though it's been like a low efficiency. I'm sure, once I think that will eventually come down, like most 3-point shooting seasons do. It's very up and down. But I don't see why, the aggressiveness can't stay up. And like, even if Josh is in the shooting slump, I still think, he should probably play through that. And I think he certainly agrees with just some of his comments that he said after games where, he's starting to learn to trust his shot more often and to just, use his body, use his size to his advantage when it comes to scoring at the basket.
I agree. I think that Josh Giddey's like very sustainable in what he's doing over these last 20-something games, 24 games, however you want to look at it. And he has so many ways to impact the game that you saw in Atlanta. 2 for 9 in the first half, and we were all collectively saying, he just doesn't have it tonight. Like, this is just not his night. And then the second half rolls around, and Josh Giddey is able to hit another gear and shoot 60% on 12 points and really help this Thunder team claw back and have a shot to win at the end. That was largely thanks to Josh Giddey's performance of getting out of that slump, despite not having it in general with a shooting touch in the first half of yesterday's game. Now, I understand that we don't really grade coaches into the playoffs. Like, it's just something where they hardly ever even get discussed until they've played a playoff series and coached a playoff series. We don't even really take notice to what they're doing until then. But there have been some things you can pick up on with Mark to this point. Like, I think that you can pick up on the fact that I believe it's his preference to allow the young players and his star players to just play through the moment instead of calling timeouts and taking over, despite his really good ATO actions that he draws up. And despite Josh Giddey being an elite inbounder, Mark prefers that Shai has the ball and just goes and works it out like he did in Miami, like he tried to do last night in Atlanta. And he's hit game winners off of it as well. They've done it both ways, where they've gotten the side outs to get game winners against Portland, and then they've gotten the opportunities to the game winner against Miami, which didn't rattle home with SGA not having the timeout call, and he gets to just push the pace up the floor and kind of settle for that step back three. I think you can pick up on little tidbits like that about Mark and how he'll coach. I think that the kind of messaging that he's sending to the team is all very translated to the team, and they're buying into it. How would you grade Mark so far in his career? Now, obviously, the win-loss record is not going to be where you would want it to be, just because of the nature of what this team was looking like over the last 2 years. So for getting wins and losses, what letter grade would you give Mark just as a basketball coach right now?
Oh, man, I think it's pretty easy to give him an A with the job he's done. I know, as cliche as it sounds, like, relationships is probably like the most important factor when it comes to coaching in the NBA or any professional league, for that matter. And just, over the years, we've seen just players glowingly talk about Mark Daigneault and just how great of a coach he is, how good of a communicator he is, and all this other stuff. So the fact that he has that down, plus the fact that, like you mentioned, he's a great ATO coach, and the fact that he's open to the advanced analytic ideas. I think he's shared a couple of stories about how he's not like the most savvy guy when it comes to advanced analytics, but like he's willing to listen to the staff when it comes to that and implement that into his game plan. All those things coming together, I mean, I think Mark Daigneault easily gets an A for me.
Yeah, to me, I think that he's the best coach in Thunder history, which is a relatively low bar to clear, because I think that we can all agree Scott Brooks was not a great head coach. Billy Donovan did not have a great career as a head coach and isn't still having success in Chicago. And then PJ Carlesimo just had no shot at all to be good in OKC. He was just bad. Like, he just made some bad decisions in his OKC career and dating back to Seattle, obviously. With Mark, I just think that everything that we've seen from him, coaching defense and getting defensive production, putting guys in position to win, getting the buy-in from the rest of the roster and from his young guys and his stars, and the relationship he's building, and also just his strategies. Like, I love the fact that he doesn't take guys out of the game whenever they're in foul trouble, because it doesn't, at that point, you just foul the guy out yourself. You just take him out of the game and he can't play. So there's not really any difference in that. So I like that a lot from Mark. I think that he's going to be somebody that pops on the big stage. Like, I would compare him to a Nick Nurse or compare him to a Taylor Jenkins, where whenever it is that he gets to coach in the playoffs, then all of a sudden the national media will start crowning him as one of the best coaches in the NBA, even though we're seeing the groundwork of all of that night in and night out in OKC. So I really am excited about the future of the Thunder, both on the sidelines and on the court.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Mark handles expectations. I mean, we see this all the time where some coaches are built for rebuilds while other coaches are built for winning. Mark's done a great job so far, and like you said, it's kind of hard to hold the team's record against him up until this point. But it's gonna be interesting to see how he manages. I don't want to say egos, but like, once these guys start to develop and all that, and the accolades start to pile up, it's going to be interesting to see how Mark manages those relationships as they evolve from these young players trying to make it into the league to these established veterans who have the skins on the wall.
Clemente, I want to tell you about our good friends over at FanDuel because they are the best sportsbook partner, and we're so happy that they are our new sports betting partner at Locked On because they're the number one sportsbook in America. FanDuel is incredible. It's better than ever, and they have great options for you to make sports betting fun and easy. New customers join today to get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel has all your favorite bets from the money line to the point spread to the player props. Plus, you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. And, Clemente, I'm sure that you know this. It's conference championship week in the NFL. So I'm going to put you on the spot right now. And I want you to tell me who's going to win between the Chiefs and the Bengals. The Chiefs are now swung back to the favorites, -1 at home.
Riley, since I like you, I gotta go Kansas City, man. I want that to happen for you, so you can celebrate them going to what, their third Super Bowl in the Mahomes era.
Yep, third Super Bowl, fifth conference championship. It's been a lot of fun in Kansas City recently. Hate to rub it in, considering how your Cowboys have done recently, but
yeah, you're a little spoiled, Rylan. Must be nice.
It's very nice. Get you a Patrick Mahomes if you can. I highly recommend it. And also, I highly recommend going to FanDuel.com/lockedon. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you. Check out the Game to Game podcast. Next up, it's a recap of the association in 15 minutes or less. So go check that out today. And Clemente, we're going to continue on talking about this Thunder team. Do you think, you have to say yes or no. Don't cop out. Do you think that this Thunder team will play in at least one game after their regular season finale? Will they make the
playoffs?
Oh man, I think so. I mean, if you look at their peripherals, like they're a top 12 team on both ends of the floor. And usually when you're a top 12 team on both ends of the floor, you usually make the playoffs at least. And I think they have the easiest strength of schedule left in the entire league. So I know it might be a little far-fetched to say, but if I had to put a percentages in terms of whether or not the Thunder make the play at the very least, I'm leaning towards 75% yes, 25% no.
I agree. I think that the way that I phrased the question of playing at least one game after the regular season finale, I think that those percentages are spot on, and you could even argue that they're higher than that to play at least in a play-in game. Now, if you want to talk about getting to the playoffs and surviving the play-in tournament or just leaping up out of it entirely, then those percentages might change a bit for us. But in terms of just playing in the play-in at least, I think that they're going to do it. I think that they're going to make the play-in tournament. And with that being said, that of course will get people excited. And as these games continue to stack on top of each other, we hope that people will go out to the arena more, support this team more, get excited more about this organization, get excited more about this roster. And if they don't, you're going to call them out on Twitter. What do you think about next year's team? As the expectations start to rise, how do you think that Chet Holmgren fits into this core?
I mean, I think he fits in perfectly. I mean, if you just look at how the Thunder played this season, I think they have a very glaring, obvious need, and that's at center and protecting the rim and having a legit, true rim protector, and all of those things. Plus the fact that Chet can shoot it from outside, he can create his own shot off the dribble. All of those things literally describe Chet Holmgren. So I think he fits perfectly with what the Thunder are missing right now, and I just wouldn't be surprised if the Thunder are in the 45-ish win club next season, just based off of Chet coming back. Especially if we have another year next year where the Western Conference is as stacked as it is, and there's all these teams hovering around 500. I think there's only 4 teams in the West right now who are more than one game above 500. If that repeats next season, then the Thunder should definitely be fighting for home court advantage in the first round.
I totally agree that Chet Holmgren, kind of fits seamlessly within this team, and obviously he's going to be very excited about playing basketball again because he's a heavy competitor. I want to ask you, for your opinion on the team's glaring weakness. What do they have to get better at moving forward in terms of like the future of this team? Not necessarily like tomorrow, but like moving forward. If you're in that GM chair, what is an area that you want to improve this team with moving forward?
Oh man, well, it's a little bit of cop out answer, and like I think everybody has said this one time or another regarding the Thunder, but like they really got to improve their outside shooting, and they got to get legit shooting. For not only do they have to get guys who can shoot the ball, but they need guys who other defenses are going to respect and close out on. Because like you mentioned earlier, if that happens, that's going to open up the lanes for someone like Shai, who's a very drive heavy player. I think he's leading the league in drives again, and if he finishes being number one, I think like it's the third straight season now where he finishes with most drives per game. So you really got to build around that for sure. And if you surround him with like guys who not only can shoot from free, but also command space and command respect from opposing defenses, then that's just going to make his game super easy and just increase the ceiling and floor for the Thunder.
So I want to ask you on the flip side of that coin, what's an area that you think that you've noticed that's kind of a sneaky, hey, the Thunder are really good at this, but no one's really talking about it. They're not getting enough respect for how good they are at this.
Oh man, I just think everybody's ability. I just think everybody's ability, or mostly everybody's ability, to play make a bit. We've been seeing it since the beginning of December. Just the Thunder have been one of the best offenses in the league. They've been scoring points at will, and a lot of the nights they're averaging with like what they're shooting. They're adding up like what 20 assists a game, 30 assist nights. Like it's just crazy. I think the other night they had like a franchise record 41 assists on 47 made baskets.
Yep.
So just everybody's ability to really play make and be able to pass the ball out. I think, that's just not something that, not a whole ton of people are talking about, at least not on a national level. It kind of feels like the national level is kind of thinking that it's just Shai and a bunch of guys, but like it's really everybody. And Shai and Josh Giddey are just the catalyst of that.
Clemente, I want to know from you, when should the Thunder make a move to kind of continue to build on this roster? When will they make a move that we immediately text each other after we see the Woj notification, just in total disbelief that it's happened? When is that kind of move going to be happening? Is it going to be in the summer, next summer, 3 summers from now? Like, if you had to guess, when's the next time we're shocked by a move?
I would probably expect something in the summer 2024. I know some groups of fans want something to happen right now before this upcoming trade deadline, but I just think that's way too soon. I told you this earlier, but like it's like throwing a paper airplane at the Thunder's house of cards in terms of like the roster build. Because if you trade for someone like, I think the hot name right now is OG Anunoby. If you trade for someone like him, not only are you gonna have to like pay up relatively soon and probably pay him north of $30 million a season, but you're also potentially hurting the development of guys and playing time of guys like Ousmane Dieng or J-Dub. And like, I just think a trade happening this season, it just feels like people want to trade just to happen just for the sake of making a trade. But with that said, I'll probably wait until next summer once you figure out like, all right, which of these guys are actually going to be part of the next core. This offseason is probably a little bit too soon for me because they're going to be adding someone for the lottery, I'm assuming. But like, yeah, the perfect time, the sweet spot would probably be summer 2024.
Clemente, you're right on the money, I think, because the Thunder just cannot draft all 4 2024 first-round picks, and so I think that they're either going to use them to move up in this year's draft in 2023, which is more renowned of a draft class, more of a draft class that people really like inside the NBA, versus the next draft class, which people are kind of low on right now. But of course, those guys could obviously have huge growth spurts and huge player spurts where they become more likable names. But as of right now, everything's all in on 23's draft, and the 24th draft is kind of underwhelming. Some people say that there's not even going to be like a top 3 guy in your organization in all of the class next year, which might be a bit extreme. So I think that the thing that you might see this summer is they might package some of those picks and move up in the draft. But I think that that's the extent of it. I think that's something that's just overwhelming would have to wait till next summer or beyond for the Thunder to do, as they see how Chet Holmgren plays, as they see kind of what this team lacks once they're fully healthy. Now, let's get out of here on a very fun note. This season, back in person totally, not on the Zooms or anything like that, so it's a lot of fun for us young guys who have not been able to do that in our careers yet. But now we have. What is your favorite game so far this year? Like, what is the game that stands out to you the most? Because I have a clear-cut number one, but I think you can make an argument for a lot of different games.
Oh man, it's gotta be either the Celtics or Grizzlies game, right? I mean, just the atmosphere at those games. It was just surreal seeing the Thunder. I think they were about both Shai and Josh in both of those games. And just to see them not only, win, but like blow out two of the best teams in the league at home, and just seeing the crowd get into it. It was those are definitely two of the games that have stood out to me the most so far from all the home games I've attended this season. It was just a very surreal moment, just being in the atmosphere.
I think that is a good place to stop and start, because it ties back to the beginning. This team is just playing so much better than expected, and so much better than they have been in recent years, where I had a clear-cut number one that you didn't even reference, and you referenced two different games. Like, for me, the number one was that Portland game where Dame broke the record, Shai hits the game winner, and it's just like you are just immersed within NBA history all in one game, and it just felt so surreal to be a part of. But that also wasn't the answer that Michael Martin gave us for Monday's podcast. So, like, it's awesome to see how many of these games you can argue is the best game that's happened. And whenever you have the case for 5, 6, 7 best games of the season, that means you're stacking quality game for quality game for quality game on each other, and it's fun to watch, it's fun to be a part of, and it'll lead to more wins, more team success down the line as well, including within this season. They're a win away from matching their win total of last year, and we're only halfway through the season, not even at the All-Star break yet. So, Clemente, thanks for joining us. Let them know where they can find you on Twitter and on all the work that you do.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. My @'s C Almanza 1007, but I'm pretty sure just search my name Clemente, which is spelled like the baseball player, that I'm like literally the top name. So that's an easy way to find me. In terms of like my work, you can follow my work at basically OKCThunderWire.com. I basically write most of the articles there. And then I also cover the Thunder bit for the Norman transcript. And, I also do a little podcast on the side as well called Bricktown Breakdown. So, if you want to give that a listen, I would definitely appreciate that. But, yeah, thank you for having me, Rylan. This was super fun.
Thanks for joining us, Clemente. I'll see you tonight against the Cavs. We'll be back after that game's over with to recap the game for Saturday's podcast, and then get you set for another 5-show week, including after every single game here on Locked On Thunder. Until tomorrow after the game, be good and be good to one another.